Hey everyone, what is going on? And welcome back to another video from A Man Talks NRL SuperCoach. This video is going to look a little bit different to my previous videos. I think I'm just going to be doing a bit of squad tinkering. Given Ryan Matterson has had that concussion problem from last night's game against the Storm, I've had some thoughts about what I want to do to my side for this round. My original plan wasn't to actually make any trades this round. Overall, I was pretty happy with my team. You know, there were some issues potentially with certain players like Dylan Brown I was thinking about, or Lachlan Lamb. But at the end of the day, I decided I think I was going to hold trades for this round. Dylan Brown still ended up doing okay, so I was pretty happy I didn't do any change with him. But given that Ryan Matterson had that concussion and it looked pretty bad, I have been thinking about potentially making some changes at least in this round, just to kind of help set up for the next round as well. So I'll just kind of show my team on the live SuperCoach page and just do a bit of tinkering. If you guys do like this video and please give it a thumbs up, and do consider subscribing, as we'll continue to put out more videos throughout the season. Hopefully a little bit more polished than this, but this is just a little bit of a quick idea that I had to do. So with Ryan Matterson having that concussion, you know, it looked pretty bad, and obviously I'm no physio, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know how long his recovery is going to be, but it looked bad enough for me to think that he'll at least miss the next week or two potentially. And given that he has had some concussion history, I imagine the Eels would want to be conservative with him and not want to rush him back. You know, he's still only scored about 36, so that will still be in his rolling average. So even if he, say, does hypothetically play next week, I don't expect him, unless he goes like really, really large, I don't expect his price to go up that much, or potentially just go, I would expect it to actually more go down. And normally I'm not an advocate of wanting to trade these gun players out just after, you know, 1 or 2 rounds, but I think we have to kind of take into account some of the circumstances. I also recommended to not trade out Angus Crichton this week because he's going to come back into our sides immediately next week. But with this Ryan Matterson news, I have been thinking about potentially doing a switch from Crichton to another player for this round, and then using Matterson as the placeholder to switch back to Crichton for next week. So in terms of what I've been thinking for this week, so I'll just quickly show how my team is looking at the moment. So no real changes anywhere else in the team. Obviously Ryan Matterson, Christian Welch, Dylan Brown and Ryan Papenhuyzen are all locked, given they've already played last night, but I can still make changes to the rest of my side. So what I was thinking of was potentially trading out Crichton just for this week, and this would probably be the only trade I'd make this round, so it would still only be making the one, which I don't think is too bad, given that 37 trades across 25 rounds averages out to a little bit over 1 trade per round, so I'm not really keen on using more than 1 this week. So I would be trading out Crichton, and I haven't really thought through all the options, so again, this is going to be something I'll think about during the rest of the day, but I have been thinking about some other good second row forward options that I could bring in for him, say like Mitch Barnett, who had a great game last round, and you know, he's got the goal kicking duties for this until Kalen Ponga is coming back. But with the money that Crichton unlocks, obviously I'd want to make sure that I've kept at least 10-15k spare that I could then switch from, say, Matterson to Crichton. But given that I will probably be making 2 trades next week and wanting to change other parts of my team, I don't think I want to be leaving just the 10-15k. I think having a lot more in the bank will help. So I haven't really fully thought through as to which kind of player I'd want to go for. You know, there's a lot of options in the second row forward. And so I think, you know, someone I was keen on for this week in particular was Dave Fifita, given that he's coming up against the Broncos. So, you know, Dave Fifita potentially could be someone I bring into the side for Crichton just for this week. So let's see, if I want to bring in Crichton there, sorry, not Crichton, sorry, if I want to bring Fifita, that would leave me 113k in the bank. And so easily I could do that Ryan Matterson to Crichton switch next week, and then they'll shave off about 10-15k there, so I'll be left with about 100k in the bank to play with for the next. It will give me Dave Fifita, who's got a pretty good draw coming up, so he's someone who I would be happy to hold long term, which is something I would consider if there's, you know, if this is potentially a strategy you want to go for this week as well. Bring in a player who you think is going to be a long term hold. So Dave Fifita is someone that I have thought about bringing in. I think I really like his matchup against the Broncos this week. And you know, with that 113k, you know, next week, if I wanted to say, you know, if Lachlan Lamb doesn't have another good game, I could maybe flip him to hooker via Watson, and I could easily bring in, say, someone like a Jaden Brayley. That would be possible. I don't think I could actually stretch to Reed Marnie, but I think Brayley, you know, is still going to be a very good option. So that trade is in the potential. So for next week, I could just do the Matterson to Crichton and then Lachlan Lamb to Jaden Brayley. Or, you know, if I don't feel like I want to carry one of these other cheap centres if they're not performing that well, say for example Jason Saab doesn't have another good game, you know, I could trade him. I've currently got Kurt Capewell in my second row forward. That was just to cover for the Crichton suspension for this round. I could trade Jason Saab. Actually, I could probably just show it live here. You know, I could go trade out Jason Saab, swap Kurt Capewell, And that leaves me with 346k in the bank. And that with 346k at second row, it's not a great amount, but I think that would give me the option to get someone like Offengawi, I think. Let me just see how much he costs. Joe Offengawi is 340k, so I could afford Offengawi if he has another good game and he goes up in value. Or I could even go for Andrew Davey if we see him get 80 minutes. I think he's priced at about 336k. So there are some options that I could do with that leftover money. I would still be getting Crichton in my team. I'd be getting Fafita, so I'd be getting points this week, and being able to lock in a gun player for the rest of my side. And then with that leftover money, I can upgrade one of those cheap centers. I can upgrade Lachlan Lamb. There's options that I have. One scenario that I am actually kind of favoring at the moment is I really want Brian To'o. I think there are a lot of good second row forward options, and I think that does give the option to differentiate pretty easily in the second row with Vida, Nathan Brown, Mitchell Barnett, Luciano Leilua, who I've touched on, Tarpany. There's just a lot of good second row forward options. I feel though that the center really is lacking this season. Obviously, it can be difficult, I think, to stretch up to those really, really expensive gun players like Nofaluma, Zach Lomax, for example. And I think unless one of those cheapy centers goes off and really starts being a good cash cow option during the season, I think it'll be hard to get an early gun center unless you already started with them in your side. But I really like the look of To'o. He can potentially score on the same level as some of these other second rowers, and he has that potential to go big. We saw last week he only scored 84 points. Well, I say only 84, but Crichton had a couple of opportunities where he didn't pass him the ball, and he almost scored a second try as well, To'o. So he easily could have cracked the 100. They're going up against the Dogs this week. I do understand it's expected to rain a lot on the Saturday that they play each other, and that potentially could hamper the amount of points overall that the Panthers score. But I think I'm willing to kind of take maybe a slight hit onto his points this week and even next week when he's versing the Storm, because I know long term he's going to be someone I want to get into my side. So what I am thinking of doing is doing that Crichton trade. I have got Ben Trbojevic as like a bit of a dual center wing second row forward nuff. And this is the advantage of having these kind of, nuff players with this dual flexibility. I'll then swap Trbojevic just up to my second row. One downside of that is then it means Kurt Capewell and Trbojevic are both in my second row forward. Not ideal because then it doesn't help switching between the two. But to be honest, I'm fine to have Capewell in my second row forward at the moment. He can be a bit of a reserve there for the time being. I can deal with that situation a bit later. And then that will give me the option to then bring in a center wing player in my for that Crichton trade out. And so the guy I'm eyeing up is Brian To'o. Obviously, with this money, I can afford guys like Brett Morris, but I don't think they're at the moment still maybe the best value. But I think Brian To'o at 520k is good value, and I think at the moment he's got a break even in the 30s, and I could easily see him score above that again this week against the Dogs. So I think he'll go up in value from round after his third game, and so I think it will be more difficult to get him in at that point. So I really want to kind of lock him in, set and forget center wing. I don't have to worry about him. He also does play in that round 13 bye week, so again, someone I don't have to really consider too much in terms of how to change up my squad. I know he's going to be a safe play, so I can get Brian To'o into the team, and that leaves me with 160k roughly in the bank. So plenty of money to work with for next week. I think I'll be locking in that Ryan Matterson to Crichton trade next week, take off the 10 to 15k, so that'll leave me with, let's say, 145k in the bank. There's so much that I can do with that money. I could go Lachlan Lamb to Jaden Brayley. And I could do that trade via flipping Connor Watson down to my 5'8". If I feel like it, I can go from Dylan Brown to Cody Walker. I've got that option as well, or Dylan Brown to Cam Munster. Don't think I'd be doing that move given that I feel the Eels draw now that they've played the Storm does soften up a little bit for them. So I think he could do really well. One of these cheap centre wing players who I'm not too keen on, like say Jason Saab, for example, with that 160k, I can then swap back down Ben Trbojevic or Kurt Capewell and bring in like a Joe Offengawi, Andrew Davey priced player. There's a lot of options that I can do with that money. So I think I'm pretty happy to make this trade for this week. It does mean doing an extra trade that I was planning for this round, but I think I'll be able to bank extra points. I'll be able to lock in a gun center wing player who I otherwise wouldn't have been able to get to probably for a while. And given that, I am banking on, Matterson being out for a few weeks, and we just don't quite know of that yet. So it is a little bit of a risk, but I think I'm happy to take that risk. And knowing that he's got that concussion history, I feel sometimes it's really hard to predict, how a player can recover from that and, how his minutes might get managed. For example, there's a lot of factors I think that go into those concussion kind of injuries in terms of when it means a player can come back to full playing. So I'm happy to make that trade, I think, for this round. I did advise to hold Crichton, and I still think if there's no other issues in your team, I still wouldn't recommend trading him out, because it's never safe, I think, to book in some of these transfers. Say, like if I say, oh yeah, I'm going to do Ryan Matterson to Crichton next week, but if I knew that Matterson was going to be out for a few weeks, I would 100% be fully confident in this decision, because I know that next week I would probably just trade Matterson out anyway. It's just bringing forward this trade 1 week early, and then being able to bank the points this week to hopefully just kind of maintain a good, decent rank, because I had a decent start to the season. So that's my trade thoughts for the moment. I think I'm leaning towards doing this move, just doing the one trade this week, and then I'll have a lot of options next week with that other trade once I do that Matterson back to Crichton move. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this. Obviously, it's not so polished and edited as some of my other videos, but just wanted to get my thoughts out there today. I think this will be a decision that a lot of people might be thinking of, so just wanted to give my own opinion on that. But if you did like this video, would really appreciate a thumbs up, and do please consider subscribing, as I'll be continuing to put out more content through the 2021 SuperCoach season. And until then, see you guys in the next video.